think it's very common when we are in a pregnancy and waiting for, well, I think it can happen whether it's your first kid or even later, but I think it's so normal. We fear the unknown. We don't know what we don't know. And this was absolutely my experience as well, Meg. Like, I remember when I was pregnant with Ella, peeing on that stick and being elated, just so happy, best news in the whole world. And my very next thought was, fuck, like I'm gonna have to. I remember crying to my coach at the time and being like, I built the wrong business. I should have built like an Amazon drop shipping company. Like, I'm never gonna be able to. And really, like, truly, that was my thing. And the experience that you are speaking to is so important because it's the side of motherhood that we don't see talked about.
Yo, 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 lovers. Welcome to Sex, Love, and Everything in Between. We're the O'Neills. You're here with Meg and Jacob.
And this is the place we have really uncensored conversations about sex, intimacy, and relationships. We're super excited you're here. Enjoy this episode. Hello, my loves. Welcome back to Sex, Love, and Everything in Between. I am here with a beautiful new guest, the beautiful Cait Scudder. Welcome.
Thanks, Meg. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so excited for this conversation. I love introing guests just with how I found you. And I only ever have guests that I'm like really excited to be in conversation with and really turned on by like going deep with. So I had seen your work. You know when someone's just like in your field for years, just on the internet, like you might see people share stuff, or like I saw a person I know work with you a while ago and you were kind of in my field. And then I gave birth 7 months ago and you came up for me and I was like, obviously now I'm a mother. I need to follow this woman. And yeah, very, as you know, like your existence before motherhood is completely different to your existence after motherhood. So suddenly just all you were sharing, I was like, oh my gosh, yes. Like, yes, yes, yes. And yeah, I was just so inspired by your work. I started binging your podcast. Yeah, I really feel like I'm going to like come into your mastermind or a paid experience of yours, like sometime in the near future. But yeah, I'm just so excited to deepen with you around being a mother and also being a woman in business. And not only a woman in business, but I really love the way you talk about legacy and not just making money, but it's really about creating legacy and creating a lifestyle where you can be the kind of mother you desire to be as well.
100%.
So I'm excited for that conversation. I've got so many questions I want to ask you already, but if there's anything else you want to add so far that you think is important to let people know about you or the work you do before we have this conversation, go for it.
Oh, thanks, Meg. Well, I thank you so much for the beautiful introduction. And, it's touching and it's also such confirmation of exactly why this brand exists. I rebranded my company. I founded my company in 2017, and it was the catalyst event to rebrand my company from my name, Cait Scudder, to the Millionaire Mother was the birth of my second child. And it completely rocked my world in the best possible way. And I really realized that no longer could motherhood just be this like side conversation, a little like one-off program that I like sneak into my offer suite, kind of lingering on the side. It was woven into every single inch. It was woven into the core fabric of my day, of my rhythm, of my company, of my mission, of my legacy, of my why. It was everywhere, inextricable. And nobody was talking about that. We had like, mommy content and then business content and the occasional mention of like doing both. But there was such a gaping hole that I saw of like, what does it actually look like to hold both worlds? What does it actually look like in the practical, in the day to day, in the rhythmic, in the nervous system capacity, in the energetic bandwidth? What about our relationships? Like, what about all these other ingredients that ambitious moms are holding? And I use the analogy a little bit. and this was my experience. I think it's different for every woman, but for me, when I had my first, obviously there was such a massive identity shift going from maiden to mother, and that was huge. But from a practical, like day-to-day rhythm standpoint, like, okay, sure, you're figuring out breastfeeding and sleep and feeds and spit up and so much fucking laundry, but the day-to-day wasn't actually like massively different. I mean, it totally was massively different, but what I mean is when I had my second, when now it
Mm,
was like,
mm,
oh, I'm postpartum with a baby still. My second was born when my daughter was 19 months old. Um it was like the analogy of like having my first child felt like, okay, I'm walking in from the grocery store, doing the mom thing of holding all the bags, and having the baby was like picking up one more bag with a pinky finger and walking in. Like I could kind of do it. It was like crazy and a little awkward and juggly, but I could do it. Having the second was just like someone like dumping four more bags on top of me and everything bottoming out and being like, I need to fundamentally figure out how to repack and reconfigure absolutely everything. So I just share that because that was really what catalyzed the rebirth of my business and the emergence of the Millionaire Mother brand as the brand to serve mothers holding both worlds.
mm. I love that you spoke about like the practical pieces, and even listening to your podcast. That's what I really like. I love, speaking into the vision and speaking into, the bigger pieces of life, but I also just think the practical pieces are so fucking important. And I love that you do that, like just hearing some of your work about you're not just like, oh, you can have it all, you can be a mother and you can be a businesswoman. It's like, yeah, you can, and here's some practical, really nitty-gritty pieces on how to actually bring that to life.
Oh my God, literally, I was just recording. It's so funny that you say that. I was just recording a story, Meg, just before we went live here about my day today. And this is just like a snapshot. I feel like we're in a moment right now in the industry. When I started my business, it was really in the digital marketing space was very bro markety. It was like
Mm,
traffic, funnels, countdown timers, one time offer. Like it was very much in that bro markety space. And then I feel like around 2020, we saw this pendulum shift into feminine business, like soft girl era. Lean back, like somehow we started like praising business models that required us like not to work at all. And I think I think everything is a manifestation in the industry. I think there is the natural law of the universe of like self-healing, orienting towards wholeness and thriving organisms. We see this in nature, we see this in the body, like platelets rush to our blood. Like there is this self-healing, self-correcting impulse
mm,
that happens everywhere in the natural world. It happens in the industry. And I think that what was happening then was a necessary correction from this overly transactional, conversion focused, burn and churn thing. But what I think happened with this swing towards quote unquote feminine business is like this idea that we should just like close our eyes, get in a bathtub, and like cash is just going to fall on our face. And it really fucked a lot of women up because it made us feel
I hear
like,
you.
it made us feel like, hold on a minute, am I
Mm.
doing something wrong? Like, I'm not just doing that. And what we saw a lot of women who like leading those conversations is like, preaching one thing but not showing the other side of another. So anyway, I'm all about the practical, and as I was saying, I was just recording a story like we are in a massive growth portal inside of our company, taking our work and our mission for mothers to the next level, spearheading and pioneering that intersection between motherhood, ambition, and legacy. And so last week we just onboarded 4 new team members,
Mm.
and are just growing super, super rapidly, but intentionally. And
Mm.
anyway, I was sharing in my story that these team members are from all over the world. I'm obviously in Sydney, Australia right now as a temporary thing. We have a team member that we just onboarded in Asia. team members from different sides and corners of the US. And anyway, I am the CEO of this company. And so the only time that worked for everybody to meet was at 3 a.m. my time. And so I was literally just sharing that how I made that work as a mom who is like committed to not burning out, committed to like being the embodiment of thriving and regenerative self-care, to be able to pour from myself in a overflowing capacity as opposed
Mhm.
to like operating from this depletion model. I went to bed at 7:30 with my kids last night, and I woke up at 2:30 so that I had 7 hours of sleep. I was able to do this, and I share the like practical nitty gritty, not to say like, okay, if you want to be a mom, you have to like, work in the middle of the night and whatever. But I just think that um, the practical piece of like how we make the puzzle work. I think
Mm.
there's such a dominant culture and conversation in the motherhood and entrepreneurship space of like, you have to choose, or everything has a season, or we're so oriented to look for the reasons why not, as
Mm.
opposed to seeking solutions. So I just give you that like practical thing of like, I'm in a season where it is absolutely my values and important to me to embody the frequency of leadership and vision as the CEO for an expanding team, an expanding brand, and
Mm.
expanding company. And today that meant showing up at 3 in the morning. Not something I want to make a habit of, not something I want to do, but something that you better believe I was prepared to do for this. But I also wasn't going to let that make me take a hit to my care, because if I don't
Mm.
sleep, I'm not able to show up for my kids. I'm not able to show up for the work that's required of me. So what's the adjustment? Go to bed at 7:30. Again, not
Mm.
something I'm doing every day, but I just want to share that practical example because it's that like solutions oriented thinking that I think is so necessary for moms who are asking themselves, well, how do I do both? Oftentimes we think I can't invent more hours in the day. And it's like, okay, but can you rearrange them?
Mm. Yeah, I love that. Oh, I got so many questions. I wanted let's stick on this practical piece now because like I said, I'm a new mom. My son's 7 months old. I run a business. My husband also runs a business. We were not scheduled people before this. I just worked. Like I was devoted. I knew how to really be in my business. But if I didn't feel like working one day, I was like, no, that's okay. I won't work. I've got tomorrow. And my husband was kind of flowy like that too. And in terms of communicating with our schedules, we didn't really have to do a whole lot of that. We're really learning now that we're parents. The communication of our schedules and times is really necessary because if one of us wants to work, the other person has to be with the baby, or we need to, be calling in support. So, yeah, I really see now as a mother, and even I love that you said like the real initiation for you came when your second child came along, and I really feel that. I see like, okay, if we're both of us have really big missions and like really big work in the world, and we know we're wanting to keep driving that and being in that, we want to expand our family sometime in the future. um so yeah, I really see the power of systems, not even the power, the necessity of systems, and in the home, if you're holding big missions and big service in the world. And I love that you also talk about that, not just like systems and team and everything like in your own business, but also like that in the home and being able to automate and hold that in the home. So I'd love to hear you talk on this. And even just to bring one more piece in, um my husband and I were like, we were really scheduled at the beginning of the year. And then we had a few like in-person things and life happened and I traveled, and we've kind of come out of our schedule in the last few weeks. And I'm realizing how much brain capacity it's taking to like communicate every week about what are you doing this week? When are you free? When am I having the baby? And I'm like already seeing how much just that takes to hold rather than just having a schedule to just like rest into each week. So I'm
Oh
sure
my
you have
gosh.
more I'm
A
sure you have more to
hundred
say on those pieces, and I'd love to hear more about, the home and yeah.
100%. I love that you're bringing this in, and I love how this even ties into this like idea of like feminine quote unquote energetics in business and masculine energetics in business, and
Mm.
feminine and masculine energetics in motherhood as well. And when you think, I can't remember who it was that I first heard talk about this, but when we think about motherhood as a practice, in so many ways, it's like the consummate expression of femininity, right? We become the vessel of life. We give life, like that Spanish phrase, like dar la luz. We're like giving the light of ourselves coming through. We are the portal, the cosmic bridge between the unseen and the seen world. And so we think, oh, mothering is so, it's all about being in your feminine. Then your kid becomes a toddler and you realize, oh, actually, so much of motherhood, it's not just being in that like cushy, rosy cheeked, milky oneness. It is so much about being in the frequency of the masculine. And I don't mean like, whatever overtones or images come to mind when I say that. If you're listening to this, just pay attention to that. I don't mean like being aggressive or strong voiced or anything like that. I mean, setting the container. So much of motherhood is about holding the frequency of container organization. You are the architect of the rhythm of your home. And I think this is where that like all the groceries toppling over, that like cartoon banana peel, like everything falls to the ground moment comes to place. Because when it's just us, we can operate in our feminine and flow. Like, as you said, Meg, like, I feel like working today. I don't. What does my body want to do? That's fine for like a grown adult. But in a home, especially with children with like research backed developmental needs, kids thrive on rhythm, routine, schedule. And it doesn't have to be like routine 8:01, do this, 8:05, whatever, but a rhythm, a predictable rhythm. And without that, their nervous systems go wonky, which like it's just this like tragic domino effect of chaos, as they grow and develop. And so this piece of having home systems, having home rhythms is non-negotiable, and it's a huge part of my body of work that, again, I think is largely unaddressed in the business space. We want to keep the conversation to like growing and scaling strategies without talking about the soil in which we are planting our businesses. So there's two things that I would say up front when it comes to those home systems. The first are your actual like systems, tools. What are you creating? I know it might sound crazy or overly formalized, and clients, when I first like bring this up, are like, what? And then they're like, oh, are your home like SOPs, standard operating procedures. So those things that you think are um, you know, silly. Why would I need to write that down? Again, especially if we have been used to doing everything in this one-off way. Exactly as you said, Meg, it takes so much energy. Think about this. Every time a babysitter comes over, my mom used to do this on like a yellow legal pad from Staples, like writing out the instructions. Here's what the dog gets. Here's what the kid needs. Here's the bedtime routine. Imagine needing to pour that from your brain onto that every single time a new babysitter came over, or every single packing trip, needing to sit down and originate that packing list from scratch. And the building about out your home back end is really about having a system that holds that mental load for you. So you are not doing that. And one of the things that I teach inside of my programs is how to build that out, and how to, because we are in this like ever evolving cutting technology way, how to leverage AI to hold the mental load with you. So that's what we teach our clients inside of our programs. And then the second piece that I would say, especially if you are operating in partnership, is to build out your rhythms. So there's systems and then there's rhythms. Rhythms are like what is your schedule, but it's not about like nitpicky organizing, getting better at like, I don't know, like batch working or the Pomodoro method. That's great. And I'm not knocking that. I think that can be really helpful. But do you have a predictable rhythm where things go? Just like, I don't know if you're into like home organizing or decluttering or anything, Meg, but just like, so many amazing Marie Kondo-esque teachers will talk about, or like feng shui people will talk about giving everything a place, minimizing clutter, like taking physical objects away and having a physical space for things. We need to start thinking about having a space for certain topics in our time, in our schedule, and in our calendar. And so having a space, not just in physical space, but also a space in terms of time. And so one of the things that my husband and I do that is a fucking game changer, it went from feeling like we just had 100 tabs open at all time of like the junk drawer of our minds of and the more kids you have, the more needs there are. It's like whack-a-mole. There's like each individual kid's needs, the family need, throw in the fact that we're like, from two different countries and so many different things going on. And it's just, there's like this endless list of tabs. One of the things that we do is we have a regular Sunday meeting where it's like our weekly overview of, just like you would have like with your, COO or something, or your co-CEO, like weekly stand-up, mapping out the week and like looking ahead. We do that as a team at home. We do that when the kids are sleeping on a Sunday, and it is the best. And then every Friday we have a finance meeting. So we talk about money, we talk about finances, we talk about accounts and tax and like all sorts of different things as it relates to money. But we know that those are the things that help us get stuff done. And what I've noticed since we implemented this is that the feeling of overwhelm of like all these different threads open during the week, there are still things that are going to come up. It's not like, we never talk about logistics during the week because we've talked about it all on a Sunday. Of course not. There's things that come up, but they're so much more organized and it's so much clearer who owns what. And it is the best. So it really makes a huge difference to think about organizing your time in that way.
I love that. And I feel that deeply. And Jacob and I, when we commit to that, like a conversation on a Sunday and like deep diving on a Sunday to like really create the structure of the week. I love that you were saying before that the masculine container, because I feel that. I feel like then I feel like I can rest into that container, right? And like really rest into that. And not like holding myself being like, when am I going to get time to work or what's happening or kind of moving through the day like that. So yeah, I really feel, I love you use the expression, the container, because that really resonates. I want to kind of like veer the conversation in a different direction, but is there anything else you'd love to talk about in terms of like systems in the home and just that kind of like home structure and why that's so important for being able to hold then a big mission as well?
I mean, I feel like I just gave the overview for sure, and I would say, yeah. I mean, I could talk the whole time about that or about AI. If you want to know more about that, you can just message me about that. But no, happy to evolve the conversation wherever you want to go, Meg.
Okay, beautiful. One thing that really, and I'd love to hear your experience with this, but one thing that really surprised me, or at the end of my pregnancy, I was very much like, I have no idea how I'm going to feel about my business once my baby is here. There was part of me that thought my business was going to feel like a burden. And there was part of me that was kind of prepared to kind of want to be like, I actually don't want to fucking do my business anymore. That feels so heavy. It feels so burdensome. I just want to be with my baby. I don't want to like, I just felt this like, oh, is my business going to feel like a burden? Even though I was growing it, I had a team, all the things. Something that surprised me, like delightfully surprised me in such a beautiful way, was when I stepped over the threshold into motherhood, my mothering or my now, as a mother, I felt so fucking connected and inspired by my mission. I felt so much more rooted in my mission. I felt so much more creative. There was like a rootedness and an anchoring that I hadn't felt as a leader before in my life, and I've been in business for a long time. And that surprised me in like the most glorious way. And I feel more connected to my business than ever before. I feel a different texture of my leadership coming through. My voice is different. Yeah, it just feels so much more in my power. And I've heard you speak into about like, of course, we've just been this portal to the other side. We've just grown a human and then birthed this human through our body. Of course, we feel more powerful. Of course, we've unleashed this level of creativity that we might not have touched before. So I'd love you to speak into that, because I think for me, I'd internalized the belief that motherhood will, end everything else that you care about, and motherhood will, close down every other thing that, in your life. And I think there's a truth to prioritizing and really being clear on what's important as motherhood arises. But yeah, I'd love you to deepen into that conversation.
I love this question so much. And I think it's very common. I think it's very common when we are in a pregnancy and waiting for, well, I think it can happen whether it's your first kid or even later. But I think it's so normal. We fear the unknown. We don't know what we don't know. And this was absolutely my experience as well, Meg. Like, I remember when I was pregnant with Ella, peeing on that stick and being elated, just so happy, best news in the whole world. And my very next thought was, fuck, like I'm gonna have to. I remember crying to my coach at the time and being like, I built the wrong business. I should have built like an Amazon drop shipping company. Like, I'm never gonna be able to. And really, like, truly, that was my thing. And the experience that you are speaking to is so important, because it's the side of motherhood that we don't see talked about. And motherhood in the like larger cultural space is very much branded. And I mean, I could go off. I don't know how much you want me to go off, but
Please go off.
there
Please
are
go off.
there's so many places in motherhood. Even like, let's just take childbirth for example, the sensationalized Hollywood painted portrayal of childbirth is that it's painful, it's horrible, it's screaming in the hospital, it's like slapping our partner and doing all of this, like it's just the worst thing ever, when really, I don't know, and honoring so deeply every single woman's experience. I've had 3 very different experiences, all powerful in their own way, some traumatic, some just unfucking believably otherworldly in the best possible way, and everything in between. But we were painted with a negativity bias when it comes to motherhood. And so this fear of I'm not going to be able to do both. Entrepreneurship is going to take me away from motherhood. And even this idea of like, and it's not even an idea, there's so much there's women who I deeply deeply respect with bodies of work that are so important about the importance of the first 3 years, the first 7 years. These are pivotal, and it's undeniable. The data is doesn't lie. These are pivotal windows in a child's life where their neurological pathways, their nervous system development, so much of their formative foundational template and imprinting is happening in these early years. And I think that a lot of the solutions that are presented at large in the culture are prioritize one or the other. Like, don't have kids until you're prepared to like take a break and just focus on them because they need it. And again, I am so grateful for the voices that are advocating for the importance, the developmental importance of those first 3 years. Where I see the refinement and where I see that there's something missing is we are being taught the model that has existed for women is either in the like corporate or career space working for somebody else. There's obviously such a lack of infrastructure in the United States, especially, although I think it can be improved, in so many countries. There's many countries that have beautiful infrastructure, but the United States is abysmal in its support for mothers and maternal leave and an infrastructure that actually supports moms with careers. So it makes sense that taking a break and picking one or the other is the very real choice that many mothers feel like they have to make. But then on the entrepreneurial side, so many of the templates and the models that we've seen, and I really appreciate your share, Meg, because I feel like it really highlights, either you've got like the bro marketers without kids, like doing videos telling you to work weekends if you want to get ahead, or you have the feminine, maidens like floating in an infinity pool in Bali with like a fruit tray being like, I think I'll like give myself 3 orgasms and like start my workday at 1 p.m. And we wonder why moms are ripping their fucking hair out, because they're like, neither one of those is going to work for me. And so the way that I see it, the Millionaire Mother body of work method, the way that we support moms is to reimagine this sacred third, this new way of running a company that actually supports you to be there and nurture your family, develop those healthy, critical, important bonds in those early years. But just as you're saying, Meg, to be able to harness and channel and move that creative energy that is moving through you energetically. This happens to so many women. And do something with it, and not be told like to be a good mom and prioritize motherhood and don't miss it and just you wait and you blink and they're going to be older and you can build your business anytime. Like I think there's like a real subtle undercurrent of shame in that, of if a moms who choose to keep working, not just because having a second stream of income if you're a 2 income household is important and necessary for so many women, but also because we want to, not because we don't care about our kids, but because it's like that expression of our ambition is a fundamental part of who we are and how we orient. And frankly, even how we want to show up as a mother, as a visionary, as a creative, as a leader. And that outlet in our business is actually fueling that part of ourselves, which pours into our motherhood, not a distraction keeping us away. So we are just in this really cool, uncharted territory of motherhood, ambition, culture, and the possibilities that exist for moms.
I love, and I heard women speak about this before I'd become a mother, but this feeling of like, no, my work feeds my motherhood and my motherhood feeds my work. And I so deeply feel that. Like, I know I've really, and I'm only 7 months into my motherhood journey, but it's been, and there's many reasons why I feel this, but there's been a real ease to this journey so far. And I know a big part of that is I've been really devoted to my work as well, or had this beautiful outlet to serve and be on mission. And that really has fed me in this journey, and then helps me feed my son and be really present with my son. And, there's also other elements, and I'm sure you'd speak into this. Well, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I know I couldn't be, or I know a big part of why I feel like I'm thriving as a mother that is also, on mission as well, is like I have a very supportive partner. I have a partner that is just like so here for me to be on mission. And I know that, for many women, if that's not the case, that can be a whole lot more challenging. But yeah, just that piece around, like, again, I wasn't expecting that. I was feeling like, oh, my work's going to be something that I have to do to bring in money and to pay for my expenses in my business and to do that. But I'm actually like, oh, my work is something that I'm so fucking excited to do alongside my motherhood. And like the way they work just so beautifully, like synergistically. Yeah. So I think that's why I appreciate your work so much, because it wasn't until I stepped into motherhood where I'm like, I didn't even realize how much I'd internalized that story of motherhood is going to take from you. Motherhood's going to take your creativity. It's going to take your inspiration. It's going to take your ability to serve. Where for me, I found motherhood has given me so much more of that, given me so much more power in my voice, given me so much more like inspiration and activation in my work.
100%. It's so true. And I love that perspective. And I also love that you shared that piece around, the supportive partner. I mean, I make no secret of that, having Toby, who is just such a rock and an anchor in so many ways, is everything. I mean, I think that viral trend of like, I'm a strong, independent woman, I rely on nobody, and then like cut to, hi, I'm nobody, I like do all of this stuff. That is absolutely the case. And again, this is part of undoing the myth and undoing the cultural obsession with being self-made. This like idea of being a self-made millionaire or being self-made, it's so damaging, and I'm all about women celebrating, like pulling themselves up and creating something new 1,000,000%. And so from that perspective, I think that self-celebration aspect is beautiful and it's important and it's healing and it's necessary, but it also doesn't tell the whole story. And the whole story is that we rise through reciprocity, being poured into so that we can then create. And this idea, I think this, notion of superwoman or supermom, again, it just creates this false expectation in women's minds of like, oh, if I can't just like create it and be self-made like Cait or like Meg or like whoever, I'm doing something wrong. And the reality is the matriarchal way of running a business and doing business is to acknowledge the reciprocity, the way, the ecosystem that we form part of, and all of the relationships and nutrients that are pouring into me as leader, as mother, as CEO, as visionary, so that I am able to pour from a state of overflow into others. So like removing this pedestaled idea that superwoman, CEO, girl boss, whatever, is doing it all and just has infinite capacity, and humanizing the interconnected web that she is a part of.
Oh, that was so beautifully put. I love that you spoke about like needing to be poured into, and something that I've been really contemplating and reflecting on in my motherhood journey as well, and why I've been able to, hold events and hold, trainings and immersions in person since becoming a mother too, is like, oh, I'm so glad I became a woman that was able to ask for support and graciously receive support before I
Yes.
stepped into motherhood.
Oh
And
my
I know
gosh.
that's been really supporting me.
It is everything. And we talk about this all the time inside of closed doors, inside of my community. It's like that for so many of us. And I think part of it is generational and like what is culturally appropriate or seemed
Yeah.
as normal in, different generations and eras. But I don't know about you, Meg, but like my mom, my best friend, I love her so much, like the most amazing human ever. It was normal when I was growing up for like the mom to do everything.
Mhm.
And that is the model and the template and the inheritance of what motherhood looks like for so many. And so that it is an active muscle that so many women and mothers and women who are at that threshold of motherhood are having to learn and relearn and retrain themselves in, is finding safety in receiving support. And I think it is the number one gift we can give our kids, is showing themselves that we believe and know ourselves to be worthy enough of receiving support, of being held,
Mm.
and investing in ourselves, investing in relationships, investing in head and heart and hands and home support to help us hold and carry the visions that we have and the work that we do, and not making
Mm.
that mean that we're a failure, not feeling guilty
Mm.
about it, not feeling bad about it. It is the medicine, and we can't be operating from a martyr frequency operating system while saying to our daughters, believe in yourself and have self-worth and whatever, because they don't, the research there was just I just posted about this yesterday. There's a study done out of Cambridge that said 80% of how our kids inherit beliefs about money, and this is money, but receiving is the through line, right? Whether it's receiving support, receiving money, our children inherit 80% of their worldview as it relates to money and finances, not from observing our instructions as parents, but by observing their parents' behavior. And so
Mm.
if they are watching, our kids are watching mommy constantly saying, no, no, it's fine, constantly completely do a 4-hour clean of the house before the hired cleaner comes over. Anyone else's mom do that? If we are watching that, we are hard coding, it's not okay to rest. It's, I have to do it all. For it to be done well, it has to be done by me. And so I am so fierce and unapologetic about, it is literally our work to undo that in ourselves so that we don't pass it on to a future generation.
Oh, I feel that so deeply. I feel that so deeply. And there was a piece I wanted to bring there. Oh, and it's just like fully left my mind.
Oh, good.
I was like so excited to read it. But yeah, that's it. That I love that you said, like, what do we make that mean? And I see that it's like, what are we? It's like the internalized, I need to be perfect. It's like the good girl. I need to do it all myself. I need to clean my house for 4 hours because I couldn't possibly have the cleaner come and see that there's chaos or there's mess here, right? There's
Right? Like,
like this
why are
internalized
we like
good
this?
girl.
Why do we do this
And
as
it's still
moms,
like,
right?
right, I see that this is like the part of us that's trying to control how others perceive us. And this is
Mm-hmm.
like the good girl. And then the good girl, when she's alive in motherhood, I don't think we can ever thrive if the good girl's in the driver's seat and we're on the path of motherhood. And then especially if we're on the path of motherhood and growing a business, that's just,
Well,
we're going to
what
be
is
in constant micromanagement.
1,000,000%. And I'm so happy you brought the good girl frequency in because it's so true. And the fear of judgment, right? I am not, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, I don't want somebody else to see my hot mess. Oh, they're coming in to do me a favor into my business, into my home. I don't want to make their life harder. And it's like, I'm sorry, what man is thinking I don't want, like this person that I have hired, created a job for, and hired to come help me in this core area? What man is making it a fault of his character, his work ethic, his personality, his embodiment in the world to receive help? I will tell you, zero. And so
Mm.
that is just such an invitation for us to look at and unwind and undo and recognize that letting go of this like good girl needing to hyper control other people's perception of us, we are creating and stepping into and ushering in a whole new archetype of what it means to be a feminine leader, what it
Mm.
means. And I use that archetype and that frequency of the matriarch. A matriarch is somebody she is a benevolent steward. She is a visionary. She is a space holder. She has this like regal undertone of knowing her worth, but not in this like cackly Cruella de Vil, like, evil, materialistic sort of way, but in this way of recognizing that when I allow myself to be poured into, and a matriarch has the highest of the high level support. She is resourced because
Mm.
she allows herself to receive the being poured into. She allows herself to be
Mm.
poured into so she can then pour from herself and be more benevolent. And we don't want a matriarch who is like, oh, like, should I really do that? Or running around. Like, just imagine if in that example, she were running around trying to do every single thing. So one of the things that I do in my business, Meg, is I host a retreat on my land at our 12-acre farm in Maine every single year
Mm.
called Homecoming. And I've run it for years now. And I've run other retreats at my home. And one of the consistent reflections that I receive from the women and mothers who come to my land and witness me in my home is like, the transmission of watching you be in that matriarch frequency in your own home, not from treating the staff and the support there who's there to help and do the hands tasks, heating up the quiches and whatever. Like, you are so loving and appreciative of them, but you're not apologetic and you're not trying to
Mm.
run around doing their job. Like, you let yourself hold the frequency, hold the energy, and that is medicinal. That changes, cellularly rearranges for so many women what we think we have to do in order to be a good woman, a good leader, a good mother. And what is really interesting, I've actually talked with our housekeeper in Maine about this. And what is so interesting about this is like we think, oh my gosh, I'm like so guilty. Who am I to deserve XYZ type of support, whether it's in our business? Like, can I possibly invest in mentorship? I haven't made enough. I haven't proved it to myself. All of these like rubbish stories we tell ourselves of I'm not ready or I'm not worthy. It's literally just bullshit that our brain is trying to convince us of because of this subtle undertone. But when we actually recognize, oh, that investment in being poured into me is a strengthening of the frequency of worthiness of receiving love and support, and that is
Mm.
possibly the number one generational inheritance that your kids will receive. When we
Mm.
recognize that that is what we're doing, and like the particular subject area is just like gravy on the top. Like, cool, you're going to get business support, you're going to get like home system support, you're going to get all of this, you're going to get housekeeping support. The real investment is I am showing to myself that I am worthy of being held and supported, that
Mm,
changes the game.
mm. I love that. I love that so much. And I think that is such, I'm sure there's women listening to this, and I'd love to hear your perspective or thoughts on this. I'm sure there's women listening to this being like, how the fuck do I start to graciously receive? I know that I'm I struggle to let go. I struggle to
Yes.
ask for help. I'm the one that goes, no, it's okay, it's okay. But deep down, I like deeply want someone to come and support me.
Yes.
Is
I
there a
have
place
a
that you
yes.
recommend someone start?
A million. So I've created a guide for you for exactly this. It's called Rewire for Millions.
Mm,
You can DM me. I'll send you the link, Meg. You can put it in the show notes, but it is
amazing.
the Rewire for Millions guide, and it's going to give you practical steps, 5 practical things, follow-up exercises, somatic practices. It's going to change the game. So absolutely start
Mm,
there and start listening to the Millionaire Mother podcast. Binge it like Netflix. Listen to it round the clock. Stay plugged in, because this is the space where you are going to learn to calibrate to a different understanding.
mm. And this kind of like links to what we were just talking about, but something else that's been really alive for me lately is like how much I realize the more, if I want to hold more, not even hold more, create more, but like also hold, like expand my mission, scale my mission. It's also going to ask me, especially now as a mother, to let go more.
Yep, 100%. Fiercer boundaries, more unapologetic no's, like discernment in what is a priority in this season and not. And again, not feeling bad about this. And wouldn't you know it,
Yes.
there's the good girl. Yet again, we say, how much shit do we say yes to that we actually don't want to do? And I say all the time, like, the more children I have, the more I'm like unapologetic about like, nope, absolutely not a priority. And it's really helpful to like make those things clear also. In just coming back to the practical tips of like, in those, family leadership meetings with your partner, talk about that together. Talk about your family
Mm,
values in this season, just like we have like company KPI setting, goal setting. Like, what are your family's goals and priorities this year? Not every year is the same. Some years it's a growth goal, some years it's a maintenance and a grounding, some years it's something different. But if you're not in a season where something is a priority, then just own it and don't make yourself wrong for it.
and I think there's a piece around letting go of like things and commitments, and also, and I bringing the good girl back in, like letting go of trying to like micromanage other people's perception of you. I just see this a lot. This has been a part of my experience of like healing the good girl online and like in my business. It's like I used to really, as a coach and as a businesswoman, think that it was my job to like control how my clients were, like their experience and their perception of me, and like, is everything okay? And like, and I've healed a lot of that over the last few years. But now as a mother also, I don't have energy for that or space for that. So I think there's also a letting go of in business, and I'm deeply feeling this, of like, I'll come, I'll teach, I'll be in my business, and then I'm going to let go of like thinking, how did this land? Are they going to take it okay? Is it going to be received okay? How's that post going to land? Da, 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 da. It's like just letting go of that as well,
Yep,
which feels really
100%.
fucking liberating. I feel a lot less selfish as a creator, and like as a, I don't know, as a maiden, I feel like I had a lot more energy to like ruminate and circle and think about things, and it's just like not the case as a mother.
100%. And I think that good girl, it's one of the things we just have to let go. And I love
Mm,
Mel Robbins, like, let them work for that. It's like,
mm,
cool, you have that perception of me, that judgment of me, that story about me. And it's not to say like we become like invincible and we never have like, feel shaken by things or something, but we just like, I don't have time for that. I don't have time to
mm,
preoccupy myself with worrying about what you think of me. I am going to devote my energy into living my values out loud, being the truth of who I am. And if you have another story, that's you. Like, I've got other shit to do. I've got mouths to feed, butts to wipe, a business to run, a husband to love. And that's what I'm going to be doing over here.
mm. I love that. Yeah, I think it's a big step for every woman realizing that's not actually our job. Like, people are gonna maybe
A
cast us as the
hundred.
villain, especially as women, like
Yep.
online and having a platform, and it's not our job to be, perceived beautifully in everyone's eyes. Yeah, that's been a huge
Yeah.
learning for me.
Yeah. 100%. I love that.
Okay, my love, is there anything else that you would love to bring to this conversation? Anything else that you know that you're like, oh, I really want the women, especially the mothers, to really hear this before we close up?
What I will say is that part of the work is moving from hearing conversations like this and being like, oh, that was so inspiring. These women
Mm,
are so inspiring. And I get that because I did that forever. And I just think that like the transformation that becomes possible when we shift our self concept and identity from like looking, observing, watching, listening. And I'm so happy that you are listening to this, but like to conversations like this as an onlooker, seeing somehow all of this as something that is available to you like at a later stage or at a later point. What I just want to say is
mm,
like this, you get to like step into this. You get to step into this embodiment and you don't have to do it by yourself. And I just think that perhaps the most revolutionary, healing, powerful thing that you can do for yourself is to get yourself inside of rooms where these conversations are the new normal, where these
mhm,
conversations actually help you cellularly rewire, neurologically rewire the pathways and possibilities that you tell yourself are possible for you, and create a new legacy for your lineage, for your
mm.
company, for your family, for your finances. It is all available. So my hope is that this is the spark, and not just where the ember goes to die, but this is the spark of a whole new flame that fans for you.
I love that so much. If you could also share with the women listening where they can find you.
1,000,000%. So I am at the Millionaire Mother on Instagram. You can find me there, themillionairemother.com. I have my own podcast, the Millionaire Mother Podcast. And yeah, I'm there in all the places. And I would love for you to DM me if you listen to this. Tell me what resonated. Tell me what you're really taking home with you. And I mentioned that Rewire for Millions guide. So yeah, those are all the places to come plug in and come say hi. It's me and my DMs, and I would love to connect with you.
Thank you so much. I love you have such an activating presence, and I love, like we were speaking about, I love that you're such a visionary, and I love the energy you hold for mothers and the frequency you hold, and just you as a transmission, as a woman and a mother and a CEO, holding that, like, this is possible. And I also really fucking love that you like go into the nitty gritty practical pieces, and it's not just like, here, like I'm the living embodiment. It's like you're really showing women how to create that in their life, and I just, yeah, I think there's not enough of that beautiful blend.
Mm.
So thank you for being that. Thank you for your work. You're activating me in ways now as a mother that is like really important in being able to merge, these identities for me as a CEO and a mother as well. So I'm just really fucking grateful.
Thank you so much, Meg. It's so great to connect with you, and thank you so much for the invitation.